Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to yet another video. And today we'll be talking with Benjamin Bloom. It's great to have him finally on the channel. If you do know him, Ben is a champion vlogger. So before we get into any of the usual business today, Ben, do you want to tell us about your channel?
I would love to. Yeah, it's the Benjamin Bloom football channel where we speak about the championship slightly too much, but we love it. Hey, previews, reviews, etc., etc. I feel slightly strange today, though, Annie, because we're kind of in this gap before everything gets going, and I don't quite know what to do with myself. And then everything's really going to kick off next week, isn't it? And I'm sure predictions, videos, and all of that good stuff coming. But yeah, just type Benjamin Bloom into YouTube and I'm sure you'll find me.
Yeah, and also the links to his channel will be in the description as usual. So we are here to talk about, do you want to give us the impression, or should I just say Mick McCarthy?
It's my one impression I can do that sounds like all of my other impressions. Mick McCarthy.
Oh, that always amuses me, but...
Well, it's big because it's bad, and it doesn't sound anything like him, but it amuses me too, anyway.
It's good, it's good, but it's just, Mick McCarthy's a music character. Okay. Now, Mick McCarthy, obviously Ben's an Ipswich fan, as he constantly points out, and doesn't have any bias towards any other championship team, no.
No, none, zero, all left at the door.
Not even Luton, eh?
You've got to love Luton, haven't you? Anyway, move on.
Okay, so he's an Ipswich fan, and obviously he would have loved Mick McCarthy at his time at Ipswich. And yeah, we're basically here to talk about him. As you've probably noticed on the channel, there's a new series where we're talking about recent championship managers and their teams from recent times, really, not too far. So, Mick McCarthy, Ben. Where do I start? Why was Mick McCarthy hired in the first place?
Mick McCarthy was hired because Ipswich was in an absolute state. So Marcus Evans basically comes in at a time, and I'll probably get some years wrong and some dates wrong because I'm freestyling, but the general narrative I will get right. So Marcus Evans takes on the club at a time where someone with Marcus Evans' wealth can make some kind of a viable difference. And when I say a viable difference, I mean take a team like Ipswich that has been at the top level and get them back there, frankly. So this is pre-FFP being managed, and this is pre-parachute payments being massive. So someone who's got a wealth of, and we're talking hundreds of millions, could effectively at that point come in, take a club, whoever it was, take even now your team, Bristol City, come in right now and basically within a season, sort of try and get them promoted. We know watching the championship that's kind of tricky now. You need a lightning in a bottle season and a very smart accountant to be able to do that and make that look good on the bank statements, don't you? So Evans had come in. Jim Magilton was there. Jim Magilton had no money whatsoever and had Ipswich halfway up the table because Ipswich was still recovering from ITV Digital going bust the same season Ipswich got relegated. Talk about wrong place, wrong time. Ipswich, Leicester and Derby all got relegated the season ITV Digital went bust and all went into administration. And basically all had new owners not long after. If in the next sort of decade or so, I don't know the exact timelines, but so Magilton was there, and Marcus Evans decided he wanted his big star. So Roy Keane comes and manages Ipswich. Amazing player, huge star, dreadful manager for Ipswich. It went terribly, and they did spend a ton of money. Then he goes to Paul Jewell, who'd obviously been promoted with Bradford in the late 90s, and then Wigan, and funnily enough, not funny at the time, beat Ipswich both times to promotion. Ipswich finished third and lost in the playoffs, in fact, both those times. So Paul Jewell was known to us as quite the competitor because he'd beaten us a couple of times. Again, dreadful, atrocious. Paul Jewell, again, spends a lot of money and leaves Ipswich at the bottom of the table with like tons of loan players, unbalanced squad, just awful, really, really poor, both Keane and Jewell. You're going to get a bit of a theme through this of managers working under Marcus Evans and it not going very well. And you can work out maybe what the common denominator is. So Mick has obviously taken, he's done Millwall, he's done Republic of Ireland, then he's come back to club football and done really well and taken, who was first? Sunderland up and then Wolves up. And he's available. Ipswich at bottom of the league. Away you go.
Yeah, and he, according to my notes, did very well to steer them away from relegation. So my next question would be, despite the sour run at the end of McCarthy's reign, did fans take to Mick after that initial run?
God, yeah, we loved him. We absolutely loved him. So, like you said, he came in, and I think this is the ridiculous season where the table gets really squished, and Peterborough got relegated with 54 points or something mental. So it was a really competitive season in respect to the fact that everyone, right down the table, everyone was close together. And he did essentially what he did in those first weeks at Cardiff, which we just saw last season, where he just arrives. He has everyone eaten out of his hand. Everyone loves him for the man management style. Gets the team organised, straightforward, defensively sound. And honestly, if he'd been there from the start of that season, I haven't done the maths, but scored a hell of a lot of points. I don't know what the points per game would have been there, but essentially he took them from bottom to into, I don't know what the final finish, you've probably got it, I don't know what the final finishing position was, but really, really took to him. And then, of course, that all then builds up to, I think, 2 seasons later it would be, he's actually going to take Ipswich and going to finish in the playoffs. So it was quite the rise. And this is all happening at the same time as FFP is going to start to kick in, and Marcus Evans is going to realise that he can't spend a ton of money every season on trying to get Ipswich into the Premier League. So those first 2-3 seasons, it was brilliant. It was literally from the bottom of the league up into a playoff challenger. So I know you're going to touch on the less than fun ending to all of this, but no, we absolutely loved him, and it was always Mick McCarthy, Terry Connor chants at away games for like 10 minutes at a time. So we loved what he did. He took a complete mess, made it really straightforward, and the team started winning.
Yeah, I think he finished 14th according to my notes, but obviously, what do I know? I might be wrong.
No, you're probably right.
But yeah, and then in the resulting transfer window, he brought in a lot of players, and there was not much cash raised. Is that just Marcus Evans being Marcus Evans and just throwing money at it?
Are you talking about his very first window where he goes and gets Christoph Berra? What he basically did, Evans still was pushing a little bit at that point, but he went back to his contacts, didn't he? And he brought in players he knows, and obviously Berra was very good. The one that Mick won't shut up about, and I suppose he's right, was Tyrone Mings as well, who came in for next to nothing and has obviously just been in the squad in the Euros. And of course the key one really was Daryl Murphy, who'd been there before on loan, but basically the team, Mick's most successful Ipswich team, is built around, some would say a freak season, you look at the numbers and judge it, but an incredible season by Daryl Murphy. So the sense in the transfer market is that he got it right. But anyone who has supported a team managed by McCarthy or watched his work knows that he's very good at picking players and giving them very straightforward instructions and jobs within a structure to go ahead and do. That's the whole thing. Be tough to beat, do your job, and see where you go. And he certainly recruited well to begin with, before maybe his hands were a little bit tied after that.
Yeah, just to point out a few of the players he did bring in, the likes of Johnny Williams, who he still has. Shock.
He loves him.
Yeah, absolutely. Cole Skews from Bristol City, Dean Gherkin from Bristol City. Also brings in the likes of Dave McGoldrick, Jack Marriott, he promotes through from the under-18s.
Yeah, he bombs him out in the end, though.
Yeah. and then sends him on loan to Woking. But yeah, overall, if we're looking at it from about 8 years in hindsight, it's quite decent. And then eventually, almost getting a tune out these players was quite remarkable, I think.
Yeah, so you get to that 2014-15 season, and I would say up to sort of January time, there was a genuine chance of automatic promotion that season. I remember there's a game against Brentford on Boxing Day, and Brentford finished in the playoffs, actually. They actually finished above Ipswich. Yeah, they finished in 5th, didn't they? So so it was Norwich were 3rd, Borough were 4th, Brentford were 5th, and Ipswich was 6th. I think I'm right. And Ipswich went to Brentford and hammered them at their stadium on Boxing Day. I think it was 4-2. And Murphy at this point had probably already got 20 goals. And this is what Ipswich fans consider to be the sliding doors moment here, where there's a general thought that if McCarthy and Evans had been ready to go with, you're going to see Kenwyn Jones go into Bournemouth. You're going to see other teams make a move here. And there's a general feeling if he'd made a move and sunk some money in that transfer window up at the top of the league with a few months to go, it happens a lot, actually. And there's the old cliche that strengthen when you're on top. And the previous promotion at Ipswich, right at the vital time, they signed Marcus Stewart, and it just makes the difference to get them up. And they didn't make the signings. And honestly, they could have dropped out of the playoffs by the end of it. Murphy ends the season with 27 goals. They just creep in. But I think it's a ridiculous season, that one, where did Wolves miss the playoffs on 78 points or something? Yes. Something insane.
Ipswich got 78, Wolves got 78, Derby got 77. So, yeah.
So 2 teams miss out on 78 and 77 when we know that a lot of seasons you're in 4th place with that total a lot of the time. My 10-year average tells me 5th place is 76 points. So that was a ludicrously difficult season. And who were the top 2? It's Bournemouth and Watford get over the line in the end, don't they? But there was a sense that where they needed to start accelerating, they didn't. And then, of course, they came up, had to be Norwich, didn't it? And Norwich in the first season down with, at the time, the highest salaried championship wage bill of all time. And it was just one step too far. They got close. They drew the first leg. And amazingly, after Berra was sent off in the second leg, Ipswich equalised. But in the end, 10 against 11. And, any rivalries with Norwich aside, Norwich, you play that game 10 times, Norwich win it 9 times with the squad they had against, Berra and Smith. And Mings was still there, but, Skews and Bishop. Murphy obviously still there, but and that was the peak. That was it. Although, actually, maybe maybe the peak was Brentford on Boxing Day, where you're genuinely thinking good transfer window and, 1.7 points per game for the rest of the season, you're up automatically.
Yeah, and also he did get cash because he did sell Aaron Cresswell for nearly 5 million to West Ham.
Yeah.
So was that?
And just quickly, Annie, Cresswell's been amazing in the Premier League. He must have played 200 games for West Ham in the Premier League and still doing it. So it's almost annoying that Ipswich had two real class players in that Marcus Evans era, and they were both left backs.
I mean, Aaron Cresswell's going in my fantasy team, that's for sure.
There you go. He takes all the set plays at West Ham, doesn't he?
But yeah, and again, I think he loaned in Chris Wood, did he, from Leicester?
Yeah, just take that with a pinch of salt. That's not the Chris Wood you know from scoring 27 goals at Leeds. He's kind of not quite there yet. He was a bit of a backup for Murphy, but yeah, obviously his career is then going to go onto really, really great things as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've covered the 14-15 season.
You ready for the boring stuff now?
Now we'll move on to the 15-16 season. Now we see a pattern where Mick is not given money and he's had to work off scraps. And again, he uses the loan market quite well. If you look at it right now, with the likes of Ryan Fraser, Maitland-Niles. So these are players in the modern day, right now, 21, 22, who are very handy players, and he brings them in at a quite young age. And then he spends 450,000 on Jonas Knudsen. So,
but you can see this is not Middlesbrough dropping 15 million on a Sombalonga or some of the transfer. Look, it's not really very fair of me to pick out that one massively high one, but no, you're totally right, and you very much now have the situation where the parachutes that previous season go down from 4 years to 3 years, but you've still got some of the teams on 4 years in the league, and FFP starting to kick in, and all of a sudden you're thinking this isn't as easy as it was 3-4 years ago. And I think Marcus Evans was slightly misconstrued. I'm not saying Evans wanted to take credit where McCarthy should have, but I think Evans probably thought, hang on a minute, I gave Paul Jewell loads of money and we were bottom, and I've given Mick McCarthy none and we're in the playoffs. Well, I just keep Mick McCarthy and give him no money and we'll just keep finishing in the playoffs. But every 3 years there's teams coming in, and that's not to mention teams coming into the league, and it's not all about money. There's teams, you're going to get Chris Wilder coming in soon, tactically innovative teams. Teams like Millwall who come in and are just really difficult to, just really competitive straight away from League One. And whilst Ipswich get worse, everyone else, the tide rises a bit. It's funny on Ryan Fraser because that season Ipswich do finish 7th. There's not really that much of a sense they're ever going to get in the playoffs, to be honest. And I think if you look at the numbers, right at the end of the season, they win the last 2 games, and it kind of looks closer than it is. I know the table is the table. Ryan Fraser is absolutely tearing it up at the start of the season and gets injured for ages. And I always thought that was a bit unlucky. But look, if your strategy is you're going to loan in one really good loanee and hope they do the business, then you cannot bank on one player, whether it's Ryan Fraser or Tom Lawrence or whoever. In the end, that well is going to run dry. And yeah, it was 7th. And God, give me. I'm sure you, as a Bristol City fan, would take 7th in the Championship next season and build some stars and try and go one stage further. But this was a 7th place that felt like, oh, okay, we did the playoffs. We're outside of the playoffs now, and the trend is now down, and the investment is now down as well. And that Murphy would have been sold to Newcastle that season as well. So all of a sudden, your key talisman is is gone as well, and the rot is about to set in.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it looked closer than it actually was. I've always had a strange thing with Mick where he tries and just wins the last game just because it looks close. You mentioned in your preview, I remember this specifically for the last game week, where he said Mick will probably win against Rotherham just to get seventh, just to get seventh, and I'm like, that makes no sense. Just like that. But yeah, I think I get you now.
Yeah. I think it was MK, and I think he had easy games as well at the end. But look, the league table is the league table, and seventh is seventh. But the nuance tells me it was a fairly distant seventh, and you do then start to get Andre Dazelle and Flynn Downs and Josh Emmanuel and Miles Kenlock, these young players sort of hovering around and not really getting used. And okay, maybe you could argue, where are they all now? And Ted Bishop's just gone to Lincoln, and Josh Emmanuel's at Hull. So maybe they weren't the class of '92 incarnate, but you're starting to get a bit of frustration now with the fans. And unfortunately for Mick, he's the lightning rod now. The frustration probably should be for the owner, but obviously McCarthy's a big, loud, brash presence, and he says he can take it all on his shoulders, and then it ended up getting directed at him. Yeah,
and the following season was not so great, was it, Ben?
Was that the 16th place finish?
Yeah. Yeah, this was the season where I think Mick was given the most amount of money, and it was given Adam Webster, Grant Ward, Danny Rowe, all for fees, and then the usual Kiefer Moore for 10 grand. I mean, that's and then he brings in Tom Lawrence as well, as you pointed out, on loan.
And there was such a one-man team in the end, Annie. Honestly, there was a point about 60% of the way through the season where Mick obviously just shut up shop and said, let Tom Lawrence play up front or number 10, get him the ball. And I think we drew 7 games in a row at one point where it was every point's a prisoner. And I remember the end of the season, again, I think, was this the season we beat Burton and we beat Newcastle over Easter and picked up, it would have been 16-17, and picked up 6 points real quick. And you started to think, if either Tom Lawrence gets injured or we lose 3 or 4 on the trot here, we're in trouble, because the descent was quite fast. But whatever you say about Mick, if it's close to the end of the season and all you've got to do is not lose, he won't lose. It won't be pretty, but he won't lose.
Exactly. And look, that's what Mick McCarthy does. And if it's going to be pragmatic, so might as well deal with it. Now, one player I wanted to touch on who he did bring in for nearly £1 million. We as Bristol City fans absolutely adored him at his time at Ashton Gate. Adam Webster brought him in for £5 million. It seemed like Bristol City. Mick brought him in for nearly £1 million as a very young player from League Two. Blooded him in, and as you pointed out quite a lot of times, Mick taught Adam Webster discipline, and Lee Johnson taught him how to play football.
Yeah, and again, Webster, we couldn't get him on the pitch. You could see that, and there's lots of conspiracy theories about Ipswich medical department and all that. I don't necessarily buy into that. Every club gets injuries, but you could see when he was out there. You could even see in the warm up. He's pinging it 40 yards left foot, 40 yards right foot, and you're like, this guy's got the touch of a centre midfielder, but he's 6'3". He's really good. Couldn't get him on the pitch. Honestly, it was another long injury run with Webster. And which season does he? I think it's after the next season. But you could see it was a quality player, and you could see that even with the restrictions on budget, Dave Bowman, who's now gone with Mick to Cardiff and McCarthy himself were still capable of bringing in a decent player and creating a star. But it was just infuriating. I don't know what the numbers are, but he definitely had a couple of real long-term injuries, and it just felt like, can we get him on the pitch every week? He's a real Rolls Royce of a defender.
Yeah, it wasn't really the season they brought him in. It was the next season, 17-18, where he really won and that move to Ashton Gate. But he obviously finished 16th in 16-17, and in Mick's last season, 17-18, brings in again a load of players on loan, and also again brings in the likes of Waghorn, Joe Garner, Hughes.
Well, we wondered, Annie, sorry to interrupt, we wondered whether he would go at the end of that season. And it was a bit of a sense of he's going to do another year, and then, he gets Waghorn, Garner, Selena, those ones you mentioned. And it was a bit of a sense of, do me one more year and I'll get you some players.
Yeah. And then he also brings in Barry Cotter, who is actually a very key figure, as we'll point out, towards the back end of this. Obviously 17-18, Mick's last season, Ipswich Town, and they finished 12th. And after what game was it? Is Mick said that he's going to leave?
Well, God, there's so much leading up to this now, because so we start the season knowing that it's the last year of the contract. So literally every press conference, every game, well, are you signing or are you going? And obviously it doesn't work when you tell people at the start of the season that you're going at the end of the season. That, you're a dead man walking, you can't motivate players, and fans don't get behind you. Obviously, it's off the back of 16th place, but what he does have this season is goals and set plays, because he's got Waghorn now. And basically, Waghorn's going to take every single set play and be responsible for 90% of the goals. They actually start the season completely on fire and win or was that? No, sorry, that was the previous season. Sorry, my bad. It was the previous season in 2017. No, was this the one? Yeah, I think it was the one where they do. My bad. Yeah, they do. They win their first 5 games in league and cup, and you kind of think, can we get something going here? But then it sort of regresses back, and when the results stop going, the football becomes a little bit more pragmatic, and then all of a sudden, with this contract ending at the season, Mick gets a little bit more prickly. The fans we start hearing the Mick McCarthy, your football is SHIT chant coming in certain games. And I have to say it gets horrible after a while between the fans and between Mick. And look, think of it however you want. The fans are entitled to their say on the football, and Mick is entitled to blast back if he wants to. But there was a lot of sort of stuff building up. Are you staying? Are you going? The football's not very good. I do think that 90% of the frustration is at the ownership, and this owner who doesn't really appear to know what he's doing and isn't turning up and isn't putting money in, and everything's all trending downwards. And then we just get a few famous moments. We get the infamous local derby where Ipswich have not beaten Norwich under McCarthy and lost in the playoffs to them. And obviously they take the lead in the 89th minute.
Yes.
But minutes before that, McCarthy makes a substitution at 0-0, and the Ipswich fans in the stand want Ipswich to go for it. They want to win the game. And he takes off a right back and puts on a right back. And that was the last sub. And I think Bursant Selena was on the bench and all of this. And So Mick's just taken a load. The chant was, "You don't know what you're doing." So for all of those imbeciles that like to think that Mick was marched out of Portman Road with a knife at his throat, come on, these are Ipswich fans. The chants were, "Your football is whatever, and you don't know what you're doing." I've seen plenty worse at plenty of other clubs. But then, of course, they take the lead 10 minutes later, and obviously Mick turns to the supporters, is caught on Sky cameras telling them to foxtrot Oscar. And then, embarrassingly for Mick and everyone concerned, Norwich equalise in the 95th minute. So he gives it the big one and doesn't even win the game, which it just is like the most Ipswich thing possible. Everybody loses. It's not like the manager's got one over the fans. Everybody loses. So we get that. And then, I hate to say it, in the London away games, I'm not proud of how the Ipswich fans treated Mick. We get a certain type of atmosphere at our London away games where there's a lot of fans do a lot of drinking, come in on the tube. The away ends are always full in London when it's Ipswich, and that's the one thing I'm not massively proud of. And he says he's going to leave at the end of the season, and there's a game at Brentford and Mick. What I will say about Mick is he gives it as well. He doesn't just take it. And of course, he slowly walks past all the away fans and there's a bit of back and forth and he gets some, but he gives it back, doesn't he? And then we get to this Barnsley game, which you've already mentioned, Barry Cotter. And as you've said, Mick knows his timing and he was waiting for a win to be high in the table. We hadn't won for weeks before this, for God's sakes. We hadn't won since he'd announced he was going, and he gets this win against Barnsley. And again, Barry Cotter makes his debut, and Mick pulls him off after 48, I don't know, 55 minutes or something. You don't know what you're doing is the chant, and the substitution gets booed, and it's tit for tat, and it's all very nonsensical. But then in the press conference afterwards, well, I don't need to listen to it anymore. I'm out of here. And this seemingly quite staged flounce out, storm out happens. And Mick, for better or worse, is done. And off he goes into the sunset.
Yeah, and what I find quite damning is he says, "I'm out of here," and says, and not like I've had my time. The cycle's over. It's just, I'm out of here. It's like, I'm done. I've had nothing.
It was deliberately symbolic. The guy's very intelligent. He knows what to do and what to say. And what we discovered after this happened is this is a very smooth operator in terms of the press. And he used to use the phrase, McCarthy, "Do you want to be peeing in from the outside or peeing out from the inside?" So in terms of, I've got my players close to me, they're all behind me. I've got my staff. And he also, what we found out, he had all of the wider footballing world behind him in terms of everybody loves him. And it was managed to be spun. And there's some truth, but it was managed to be spun that Mick was the victim in some kind of witch hunt by the Ipswich fans and certain members of the press. Look, I don't blame the footballing public for buying a salacious narrative, but certain members of the press jumped on, "Oh, McCarthy hounded out," and all of this, and it was like, have you ever been to Ipswich? Really? Hounded out? A couple of chants. Go down to Millwall and listen to them when they don't like a substitution and tell me Mick was hounded out. And I'm not saying Millwall fans being unreasonable. I'm just saying there are plenty of fan bases who would have been a lot more fervent. There was a lot of back and forth. And really what we now know is it was a very badly run club that Mick McCarthy was holding together. And the poor guy had all the pressure that the ownership and maybe a CEO or a director of football should have been taken off him. He had it on his shoulders. So some tit for tat. Mick did a good job. He did in those circumstances. But I will defend to the hilt. He was not hounded. He was not hounded out. He was in a rubbish situation where everybody got fed up with how the club was being run, fans and manager alike. And I would hope if he comes back, if there's ever a game between Ipswich and Cardiff, I'd hope people can now see that he was one of the good guys there, and perhaps the slightly absentee owner was should have been fronting up for this.
Yeah, I think that just about sums it all up. I think
that's my opinion, Anya.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I'm sure we'll get people who'll Google it, read one article by Barry Glendenning in The Guardian, who is a Irish Sunderland fan who is clearly, let's not speculate, but clearly pro McCarthy, and decide that he was hounded out. All I would say is Ipswich fans are good people. Mick McCarthy is a good person, and the situation was not a good situation, and everyone got a bit fed up with everybody in the end, and we all move on. And whilst it makes a nice narrative, oh look, they hounded Mick out and then they got relegated the next season, no, there were other things way above McCarthy that meant that downward descent was that was going to happen, and he was just delaying the inevitable.
Yeah, so I think we've covered Mick McCarthy and his time at Ipswich. So once again, I'd like to thank Ben for coming on. It's been really good talking to him, Ben. So yeah, thank you for coming on. I'm not sure how to end this, but
no, you're very, very welcome. And look, it's one that, and I still get comments and I still get wound up by them I think it's a situation that's quite misunderstood from the outside. And I sometimes talk to people and say, can you show me a little bit of respect here? I had a season ticket. I went to the away games. I watched all the press conferences. I'm friends with the journalists that were asking the questions, and this narrative has survived that, in some ways that it's the fault of the Ipswich fans. And I dare say they are one of the victims in this, not to blame, but there you go. No, thank you for having me on, Anna. Obviously, you've been really supportive of my channel and a great contributor in the chats and for all the predictions and all of that good stuff. So, by way of a thank you to you, obviously, I was going to come on and talk to you about this.
Yeah, it's been really good having you on, Ben, and obviously I'll be on the chats pretty much every stream.
Causing trouble.
Yeah, because that's what I do.
Stir in the pot.
Yeah, because that's what I am basically. So that's my day job now. Just set a reminder on every Benjamin Bloom stream coming up.
Let's go and wind up. Which set of supporters shall I go and wind up today? Hey, who's just had an annoying home defeat? Right, I'll go for them. There you go.
Because I've got a spinning wheel on my phone.
Very nice.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think that's about sums it up. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to check out Ben's YouTube channel and his social media. Everything will be in the description down below. And yeah, thank you again, Ben, for coming on. And thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like on the video, comment down below your thoughts, mate, just really on Mick McCarthy and hounded out of Ipswich fans. And until next time, I'll see you later.